So good afternoon, everybody, on this May Day, Friday. Probably May Day is the right sort of sentiment in the country today. People are slightly worried about what's gone wrong. So we'll just take you through in our series of expert webinars in these complex times. So we've been speaking to some of the experts. And today we have with us one of the foremost experts on the fixed income / debt fund markets. I'd like to welcome Mr. Mahendra Jaju, who's the CIO for Mirae. He needs no introduction if you're part of the industry. He's a chartered accountant by qualification, and he was very humbly telling me, I've not been in the debt market for too long, only 25 years. So on that note, I'll hand over to MJ to introduce himself, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit about Scriptbox and what we hope to achieve in today's session. So MJ, over to you. If you could just do a quick brief introduction about yourself.
Hello everyone, good evening, and thank you for taking time out on holiday. And as he said that this is May Day, and May Day in a different sense also, because the debt markets are going through a bit of a volatility right now, and it is a good time to connect. As about myself, as you know, my name is Mahendra Jaju, and I am the CIO fixed income for Mirae Mutual Fund. Mirae is a South Korean company, and we are one of the largest in the Asia. And I have been working in the fixed income space for over 25 years now, and I have worked with various premier organizations. Two more prominent of them are ICICI and ABN AMRO Bank. I run the debt part of the Mirae Mutual Fund, which has right now 5 debt funds, and total corpus of Mirae is about 50,000 crores, out of which the debt component is about 6,000 crores. So thank you so much, and back to the moderator.
So a quick sort of introduction to Scriptbox. You all, most of you are customers, so thank you for being part of us on the journey. We, as you know, our basic premise of investments is to make everything simple. To cut the clutter, to remove the noise, to make things simple, to easy to understand. I was talking to MJ earlier in the day, and what was very heartening to know, his philosophy was very simple and very similar, and it's all about simplicity. Can we explain this? Can we make this easy to understand? Debt funds have never been in prominence as such. Stock markets typically tend to talk about equity, and there's a lot of noise around Sensex, Nifty going up and down. But it's important to note that of the total mutual fund industry, equity is probably 20% of the overall industry size. So it's very important to realize the sort of the gravity of the debt fund market. There are multiple names for it: fixed income, debt. You'll hear things like liquid funds, ultra short, and all these names are confusing. So I'm not going to bore you with that. All I'm going to say is that at Scriptbox, we try to make it simple. So we call it either short-term money, which is a specific need you have in the next, say 1 to 3 years, or 1 to 4 years, or a specific requirement, or an emergency fund, which basically says, hey, money I will need on a rainy day. So we've tried to simplify this. Underlying those obviously are very complex instruments managed by experts like MJ. Our whole philosophy at Scriptbox is that we trust the experts. We believe that they know better than us, and we hand it over to them to manage the money. Now, what we'd like to achieve in today's webinar is we obviously reached out to you all, and people have especially given the whole what happened in the markets over the last 1 week, and the intensity of the questions has increased. A lot of people have asked us questions about their debt fund portfolio. What should we do? Should we remain? Is it a good time to get out? Should we move money to fixed deposits? So through a systematic series of questions today, we'll ask MJ to help us unravel this and see what he believes and what we think we should be doing. From a Scriptbox perspective, it is our stern belief, it is a deep belief that as part of your asset allocation, debt funds or / fixed income are a necessary part of your asset allocation. So yes, there should be a healthy mix of sort of emergency money, sort of short-term money, and long-term wealth creation. But we genuinely believe that debt funds are an important part of asset allocation. So without much more ado, I'll hand over to MJ. MJ, the first question is around trust. Typically, people put money into debt funds with the belief that these are safe. Safety obviously is relative, but at that highest, broadest question, what is your view about debt funds being safe, and are they still trustworthy?
Well, I think there is very little to say that the debt funds are not safe. I think debt funds are amongst the safest investment avenues. But not all debt funds are the same. So debt funds are broadly divided by two categories. One is the funds which have duration risk, and the second is the category which has the credit risk. Now, every common person understands that the biggest risk in debt business is of credit risk. That is, if you lend money to someone and it doesn't come back, then all your return calculation go for a toss. All of us have in our life, in some way, have suffered NPAs, in the sense that at some point in our life, we have helped a friend, a relative, servant, a driver or someone, and who has not been able to repay. And there we have generally, accepted it, because when we lend that money, in some corner of our heart, we have an also objective to help him in a time of difficulty. But when you lend money professionally, so let's say if you invest in a debt fund and the money doesn't come back, then it feels very, very bad. It hurts badly. So therefore, what is the solution? The solution is not to brand all debt funds as not safe or safe. The debt fund safety does not swing with the mood or the experience of the investor. It swings with the fundamentals of each debt fund. So if you permit me, I like to give you another story. That in a small village in Gujarat, a person goes to buy mangoes, and then he goes to the shop and asks the shopkeeper, "Bhaiya, aam ka kya bhav hai?" So he said, "Mango is 800 rupees per dozen." So said, "This is too expensive." And then he looks from his eyesight, and then he looks at another bucket in which a different quality of mangoes are kept. So he says, "What is this?" He said, "No, these are the mangoes which ripen by themselves and they fall from the tree. And then we pick it up and they are ready to eat, and you just go home and just squeeze it a little bit, the juice will come out. So this is available at 600 rupees because it is slightly inferior quality." So he said, "Look, if it is inferior quality, why should it be 600 rupees? I will pay you 500 rupees. Okay. So he takes home, has the mangoes, and then next morning, he develops a stomach upset, obviously. So he rushes back to the fruit vendor and complains to him, कि भैया आपने क्या आम दिया, मेरा पेट खराब हो गया, ये वो वाला ना, and he starts shouting at the fruit vendor. And then this guy stands up and, "Sir, please understand, my mangoes were good quality. There is no problem with the mango. The problem is with your stomach. It could not digest these mangoes." Because क्या होता है, during the day, all these second grade mangoes that we cannot sell, we give it to our cow. She eats it. She never had an indigestion problem, right? So the problem is with the risk appetite of the investor, not with the debt fund. If you invest in the wrong fund, then you will get the wrong result. And if you if you do something in the same way every time, you'll get the same result. So I think it is grossly unfair to brand all debt funds as unsafe. It is important to get expert advice from people like Scriptbox who understand the business. So you invest through a trusted financial advisor or intermediary, say for example Scriptbox, then you get double benefits. The first level of screening happens at their end, and then the second level of professional fund management happens with the experts to which they lend money. So I think I have given a very general answer. So just to be specific, I think there are two types of funds: credit risk funds and duration funds. In credit risk fund, right now we are having a triple whammy of the situation. There was an ILFS default that happened 1.5 years back. That made life difficult for the NBFCs. Then right now we are going through the coronavirus crisis, where because of the lockdown, there is a tremendous corporate stress. So it is not unnatural that the weakest of the chain will break. And that is not the reason to, get worried about everything. We have in India now about 10,000 deaths because of coronavirus. That does not make India an unsafe country or unhealthy country. So I think we should be careful in branding everything under one umbrella. We have to find our own gaps in understanding of the debt funds and of our own indigestion problem rather than branding everything as bad.
Thank you very much. So, I mean, just that simple homely example gives a sense that there is a price for everything. And if you think you can get extraordinary returns, there is likelihood that you'll develop indigestion. Because it's not that the whole category is unsafe. There are actually, on the average, if you look at the underlying portfolios, we would believe at least 90%, if not more, are still AAA category. So just
Atulji, I like to give an example that RBI announced the 50,000 crore liquidity window for the mutual funds, and only 2,000 crores of that has been utilized because the mutual funds have already a lot of liquidity with them. It is just one section of the funds which were always known to be high risk that have faced problem. I will also tell you that in equity markets, every now and then, two stocks become zero. Everyone has that long WhatsApp list of how many stocks have fallen by 95% in 2019, 2018, 2015, 2013. But nobody says that equity market is unsafe. It's all the difference in the familiarity levels that we don't say equity market is unsafe where there are more casualties than the debt markets.
So the example we give very similarly, right? And so you walk into a restaurant and you sit down on this table and there's a pristine white tablecloth. And you're sitting there with your family and suddenly there's a wine spot you spot in one little corner, right? You don't talk about the white tablecloth, you talk about that wine spot. And same thing seems to have happened in debt funds, that the wine spot is being talked about as if the whole tablecloth has gone red. The tablecloth is still completely white and it's completely safe. Let's not focus on the wine spot. Let's focus on the overall tablecloth being white and clean. The other question is that what do you think is a realistic debt fund return to have? For various reasons, people have numbers in their head, and it's like how long is a piece of string. But typically, people will compare it to fixed deposits, and in that sense, what do you feel is a realistic debt fund return which manages risk in a fair way?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question. I think I must thank you for asking that very deep question. So let me again give it a little different angle, and let us look at the debt fund returns from a different perspective. All of us know that over the last 25-30 years that the mutual funds have been in existence, and since the last 30 years in 1989 that the Sensex has been in operation, the long-term compounded annual returns, CAGR returns of the equity is about 15%, right? Now, does anybody have any idea of what is the same period, last 25 years, CAGR returns of the debt funds? It is about 8.5%. So therefore, the broad equation is, forget about everything, the debt fund gives you about half the return of the equity fund. That is the equation. So if you think equity returns are very attractive, debt fund returns are half as attractive. Now let me address the other part of the bank fixed deposits, which is the first choice of everyone. Now banks are the smartest people in the world of finance. And we go to the banks because we are very afraid of losing our capital. We are very afraid of a loss. So therefore, banks are the smartest people. They understand this. So when you walk into a branch bank, these people laugh that dekho bakra aa gaya. So they give you the lowest possible rate of return at which you will make the fixed deposit, right? Whereas compared to that, the debt markets are market-related features. Debt funds give you return linked to the market. Now, what is the market return? Market return is the return that equity funds give. So you think that is very exciting. So debt funds are also market-related products. And as I explained to you just now, if you look at the history, debt funds have given you half the return of the equity by and large as a thumb rule. So therefore, debt funds have historically given you about 8 to 8.5% return. bank fixed deposits have never ever competed with the mutual fund returns. Now, where is the problem in perception? Because people who are investing, they are earning money in their own business. So they are not, you know, fools. They are smart people, and that's why they are earning money to invest. The problem is that we never see the full cycle of a debt fund, and before that we panic. So, like for example, today in the equity funds, the 3-year returns is negative. Now, can you say that the equity funds don't give good return just because the 3-year return is negative? So, when people invest in debt fund, and they typically come after a period of good return because that is the only thing that attracts them to invest. And then if the fund goes through a rough market environment, like what is happening right now, they panic and they redeem. And it is our normal tendency to monitor something as long as it is in our portfolio. And once we have redeemed out of panic, then we start tracking it. But so therefore, if you look at that dynamic bond fund, for example, our dynamic bond fund for the last 3 years has given you 9% return. Now you tell me 3 years back, just after the demonetization, which bank would have given you 9% return? Even Yes Bank was not giving you 9% return. So I think there is a lot of education and information that needs to feed into the debt side of the investment business, and that will awaken people. The other part is people don't invest in debt funds out of fear, and they say, look, 8% extra return ke liye, why should I take so much problem? So as I explained to you, historically, the debt funds have given you about 1.5% return higher than the corresponding bank fixed deposits or something. And then if you invest 1 crore for 10 years, you make 15 lakhs extra. If you invest 1 crore for 20 years, you make 30 lakhs extra. If you invest 1 crore for 25 years, you make about 35 lakhs extra. And with the compounding effect of Warren Buffett, you make about 40 lakhs extra. So just by making the right choice, you make 40% extra wealth if you have been investing for 25 years. Now people don't understand the big impact of small numbers that compounding can bring. And therefore people remain much poorer than they would be in the absence of that education or that awareness. And people therefore should understand, first of all, that there is no point in talking about debt in absolute terms. People who give you absolute return like bank FD or insurance companies, they give you the lowest possible return, as I explained, because they understand you are fearful and they take full advantage of your fear. Bank will give you 5% on bank FD and invest the same money at 12%. There's only one risk in investing in debt funds, as I said, that if you lend money and if the money does not come back, then all this return calculation is useless. Therefore, and the longer you invest for, the higher is the uncertainty, because future is unpredictable. Therefore, invest in a high quality fund and you will never have the situation that happened last week, and you will earn significantly better return than any corresponding debt product, is my assessment and experience over the last 25 years.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So summarize again that debt funds typically give you much better returns or better returns than FD. If you invest in the right debt funds, they are safe. Obviously, credit risk is there, but you need to pick the right fund managers, picking the right companies. Like in equity, the good fund managers pick the right companies. Similarly, the good debt fund managers pick the right instruments to invest in, whether it's government bonds, whether there's gilt securities. I won't get into jargon in details, but shorter duration funds with lower credit risk profiles are the right place to be, because they give you better returns and they're more tax efficient. And in the long term, with the power of compounding, which we always talk about, it makes a lot of sense to be invested in debt for a portion of your portfolio. Now, the other question, obviously, we always say trust the experts, but obviously, we also want our customers to understand how do you assess a debt fund's risk? So how would you be, for a layman, what should he look for, right? Like you said, in some cases, like a gardener, and this is not to be classist, but in some cases, you've just given the money out of because you feel they need the money and you're not sure the money will come back. But a debt fund manager obviously has a lot more considerations. But specifically to do with risk, you talked about duration risk and you talked about credit risk. For a layman, how would he know by looking at a fund or by looking at a mango, this is a good mango or this is not such a good mango? What would be your view of that?
So I think that is a really challenging task. I think to figure out whether there is a good credit or bad credit, or whether there is a duration in a risk in a fund, it's a really complicated task. It is not easy, I must admit that, and which is why it is all the more important that the investors should take expert help, expert advisor help. You see, when we go to a restaurant, we just look at the rating of a restaurant. We spend time on Zomato or Easy Diner or one of those apps to get the review of the other people, and then we go to the restaurant. But once we go to the restaurant, we don't ask the chef as to what inputs he's using, what ingredients he's using. We don't ask him what is his process. So I think when we invest in debt, we are focusing at the wrong end of the spectrum. There is enough information available from the rating agencies. There's enough information available from the funds investment process. There are fund managers who are always available, like I am doing it today, to interact with the investors and with the advisors. So there are 3 levels at which you can assess the risk of the fund. In the new environment where SEBI has given categorization of each category of fund, then it becomes easier, because let's say, for example, if you invest in a short-term fund, it can invest between 1 to 3 years of duration. If you invest in a dynamic bond fund, it can invest in any type of paper. And then if you invest in a liquid fund, it can invest only in a paper up to 91 days. As I said, your biggest risk when investing in a debt fund is the credit risk. And there are 3 main principles that you can follow to understand what is the credit risk in that fund. First is that if you go through, or if you glance through the fact sheet or the portfolio of a fund, and then if the most of the names that you see you can relate to, then I think it is easier to understand. So therefore, suppose if you picked up our fact sheet, and then you will see names like Punjab National Bank, State Bank of India, Union Bank, NABARD, NTPC, PFC, Reliance, Aditya Birla, Hindalco, then you know that you are dealing with names which have a majority of their business in public domain. Most of the businesses are listed businesses for that group. So you know a lot more about those companies, and those companies are under active coverage of hundreds of analysts, including on equity side and in the international brokerage side. The second is that the business that the company has should have operational cash flows, and the company should be able to meet its debt obligation by operational cash flows and not by having to refinance the maturing debts. And the third, and this is the real important one, that the investments by a mutual fund should be simple, plain simple coupon bearing bonds. If you look at fact sheet where you have structured products, where you have complicated products like loan against shares and so on, then I think you will have problems. So just to give you one example, if you look at the fact sheet of fund 1 year back, and if you look at a name like Morgan Credit Limited, your first assumption will be that it is perhaps a subsidiary NBFC of Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan or something. But when the Yes Bank fiasco happens, you realize that, oh, it was a holding company of the Yes Bank group. So the names are misleading, and those are the things that you need to be careful about. Now the point is, how do you as a retail investor, or as someone who is not familiar with the complications of all these technical things, how do you address that? I think then you start with looking at the fund house's track record. Most people have a reputation. So if you look at the film industry, and then if you look at the category of stars, and then for example, when let me take an example of, let's say, if you're going to watch a Amitabh Bachchan movie versus a Govinda movie, you know what to expect broadly. So both the stars have positioned themselves in a certain segment. Or if you go to and if you talk about Bombay, if you go to the Palladium Mall versus if you go to our city mall, you know what to expect, because there are different brands which are positioned. So I think there is a similar categorization, like when you go to a 5-star hotel versus a dhaba, so you know what to expect. It's difficult, but it is not impossible. It requires a lot more.
I'll interject. Sorry, and just so the broad message is, it's a complex world. It's not to scare you, or it's not to say that you should not read more or know more. Our sincere advice here would be to trust the experts. A lot of science and a lot of math goes into, this is not to do a sales pitch on Scriptbox. We realize how complex it is as professionals ourselves. So we trust a bunch of algorithms, which look at credit risk, which look at interest rate risk, which look at duration risk, before we recommend any funds into our basket. We are absolutely confident, and it was borne out very well in the recent past. None of the funds which are closed by one of the fund houses were part of our portfolio. So again, I'll repeat, while it would be good to be knowledgeable, but half knowledge is always scary. So our recommendation is trust the experts. That's what they do for a living. They look out for you. It is in their interest to look after your interest. So hence, on the debt fund side especially, because unlike the equity markets where you can follow Sensex every day or Nifty every day and get excited, this is slightly more distant, but in a sense, far more technical and scientific. And hence, for debt fund risk especially, there are different types of debt funds, and I won't get into the details of that. But we tend to recommend the shorter duration liquid funds for all your debt fund requirements, and they work well in India, and we've stood the test of time. But there is one more. I mean, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat window. We will try our best to answer them during the conversation, or the team will pick them up and get back to you on those in due course. So while we don't have an interactive session of ask, you're being allowed to sort of ask us questions orally. You're free to ask questions in the chat window, and we'll pick them up and come back to you with the answers. Sort of the last question from my side before we answer any specific people questions is, what are you doing in your portfolio, especially given the current market situation? A lot of balance sheets of the corporates are under tremendous pressure because of COVID-19. Their cash flows have been impacted, so their creditworthiness is probably under doubt. So in that particular situation, what do you think is going to be the impact, and what are you doing to protect our investors' interests?
I think COVID is a very once in a century kind of event, and as we already know that it has led to unprecedented lockdown, and a lot of capacity is blocked and under lockdown. So there is going to be obviously significant impact. And you start from the service sector. So even after the virus crisis is over and the lockdown is lifted, there will be longer period impact in terms of, say, entertainment industry, travel industry, shopping malls, and so on. And those sectors which generate demand for the other manufacturing sectors, they will also face problems. But the governments are going overboard to try and help some of those sectors. Insofar as our approach is concerned, as I told you, that an overwhelmingly significant part, close to 99% of our portfolio is invested in government bonds, in AAA PSU bonds, and in very, very high quality corporate bonds, only AAA like Reliance and so on. I can tell you this is pretty much our portfolio. So just to give you an example of how we think we are, relatively protected from the situation, let's take an example of our dynamic bond fund. It is our stated philosophy that we invest in that fund only in the government bonds and AAA PSU bonds. We have never, in the last 3.5 years that we have been running that fund, taken any exposure other than government bonds and AAA PSU bonds. So by default, your credit is zero. Credit risk is zero. And therefore, there is no question of any default unless the government itself collapses, right? So we have completely separated the duration risk from the credit risk. Now, what is the return of our dynamic bond fund in last 3 years? It is 9%. Why? Because the interest rates are so volatile. As I told you that there are two ways to earn return in the fixed income space. One is through the duration risk, the other is through the credit risk. In credit risk, if things go wrong, you don't get your money back. In duration risk, suppose interest rates go up and down, there is only one thing in India on which the government and the RBI has control right now. On the medical front, we have no control. On the economic front, we have no control. Government has only control on interest rates. So if the interest rates go up beyond a certain point, the governments will take action, RBI will take action, interest rates will come down. So if your portfolio has only interest rate risk, then if you remain invested long enough, you make very good return. So I think our approach is to largely invest in government bonds and AAA PSU bonds and earn returns through duration and not through credit, which is why we think our funds are in an extremely strong position right now.
Thank you very much, MJ. I mean, those are large questions we've had from everybody that should I continue, should I remain invested? Yes, so our house view, and we highly recommend this, is that please continue with the SIPs as they are. The category is a good category to invest. It should be part of your asset allocation. Please top up your emergency fund. We believe that you have at least 4 to 6 months of salary. We don't know what the future holds. It's just a good practice to have in your portfolio. The last bit is that over the next, investing ideally is a very boring piece. It's like watching paint dry. Put the money, like our philosophy is, fill it, shut it, forget it, let the expert manage the money. Believe in the power of compounding, like MJ was saying, and you'll see your money grow exponentially over time. The one question which is, I'm sure, in everybody's mind, and I've talked about asset allocation, what is the ideal ratio between equity and debt? I'll give you my view, and I'd love to hear MJ's view on that. First and foremost, there is no ideal number. It doesn't have any particular number for everybody. It depends completely on your goal, on your life stage, on your requirements. So if you're saving up for your child's education, and you're only 2 years away from paying the college fees, putting money into equity would be the wrong thing to do. You would rather put all of it in fixed income. Whereas if you're planning for your retirement and you're 40 and you plan to retire at 60, at that time you should have a larger portion in equity. That said, there is a broad rule of thumb which talks about deduct your age from 100, and that portion should be in equity. So if you're about 40 years old and you 60% should be in equity and 40% should be in debt. But it's a rule of thumb at best. It's best to use some asset allocation models, talk to the experts, see what is required for your goals, and then go ahead with it. But if you wanted a rule of thumb, it's this 100 minus age in equity would be a good way to balance your portfolio. After you're topped up to emergency fund, so make sure you're saved up for a rainy day. That's got to be in liquids. The rest is obviously a combination of fixed income and equity. When you're looking at your fixed income, please include your provident fund, which is, say, your compulsory deduction as fixed income. That is part of your equivalent to your debt or fixed income portfolio. So when you look at your entire financial assets, look at beyond just what you invested in mutual funds or direct equity. Take a more holistic view, and ideally, balance it out in such a way that you can meet your multiple financial goals, or meet your life goals led by your financial needs, your home, your children's education, your retirement, and your other dependents, and obviously some pleasure and travel. So I'll leave it at that. I'll ask MJ, I'm sure you ask this question regularly, and you must be having an answer which is more interesting than mine. What's the right ratio?
What is the right
ratio between debt and equity?
So I think you have already covered. And see, I am not a wealth advisor, or I am a portfolio manager. So it is not my job to talk publicly. But broadly, I think there is no one fixed formula. I was seeing on the chat that somebody said the new formula for the allocation is 120 minus age. I think this whole madness about the equity funds and equity has caused such a distortion in how we look at investing. And as I said, that I am not a wealth advisor and it is not my role to talk about the allocation. But I can tell you that before you talk about distribution between the fixed income and equity, the portion allocated to debt itself needs to be invested properly. most of the people either invest in fixed deposits or they go for high risk debt funds, and then they brand all the debt funds as bad. So I think that is the first step that you need to do. I think the allocation to debt is a function of your not age minus the and sorry, Mr. Atul, I think
No,
that is the
absolutely.
right thing. But what I'm saying is that along with the age, you also need to multiply it with the earnings capacity. So for someone who is an MBA, his formula for 100 minus age will be different than someone who is an Uber driver, because the future earning potential for them is very different. So I think you need to consider your future earnings potential before you do the asset allocation. It's like if you are the age of 25 and just qualified as an IIT, I am a graduate, I think you should not be investing in debt at all. You should be borrowing and you should be buying house, and you should be buying an expensive car, because in 5 years time, your earnings will outpace the growth in the house prices and the car prices. So there is a very different world that we are now living in, and therefore the historical patterns won't work. But I agree with Atulji broadly that 100 minus age is a good formula. If you assume an even or standard growth rate in your income in future years, I think that investing problem becomes serious when you have accumulated wealth through other means. Suppose if you're a businessman or a tech startup or something, once you have the wealth, then you have to worry about protecting the wealth in a risk managed way and then grow it. And that's the time this equation comes into play. I feel that the allocation should be based on a function of your future earnings growth and your expenditure requirement, right? Uh, so if I can talk about myself as an individual, I'm about 50 odd years and I have been working for 25 years. I have met with a large part of my responsibilities, and I save now therefore a decent amount of my earnings. And if I do a decent job, I'll have my job for the next 10 years. So I'm someone with a investable surplus every month, and I'll have my cash flows for the next 10 years. How should I invest? Because I've been investing for 25 years already. You please understand that in equity markets, things can become zero to hero in a matter of few months. So Yes Bank gave you all the returns for 15 years, and then in matter of 3 months, it became zero. And you have so many stocks, like you have Fox and King and Reliance Power and so many which have become zero. So in equity, it is not important how much you invest, what percentage. First and foremost, the companies in which you invest should survive. And which is why direct investing without expert knowledge is so damaging, which is why mutual funds and which is why experts like Atulji who can help you channel into the right stocks, right? And then, as I told you, that equity has given you 50%, I mean, higher return than the debt. So if equity has given you 15%, debt has given you 8%. Now, equity has 5 times the volatility of the debt fund. Therefore, in my view, the right equation is to take a risk-adjusted return and match it with your target, goal-based investing. So suppose if you want to accumulate 1 crore at the end of 40 years or 45 years, then put it in that formula. I think Atulji understand what I'm saying. That is the right way to look at it.
Thank you very much, MJ, and giving you a personal example really helped. So we are nearly out of time. So the one thing I want to assure all our customers, and I'll take this pitch, apart from hiring MJ as our head of sales, because he's pitched for us better than I could have.
No, I mean it because I want look when we go out to eat, we just go to a restaurant. We don't carry our meal. I think investing is a complicated business, and people should take expert advice.
Absolutely. So what we are doing at Scriptbox specifically is monitoring all our underlying securities under all our debt funds. We've got a very capable team which uses our proprietary algorithms to score the portfolios. We've just run it over the weekend, and we are confident that the funds which we are recommending are the right funds. We do this on a very, very regular basis. We are also launching a couple of tools which will become public in the next week or so or 2 weeks, where you can do this on your own. So you'll be able to come onto our platform and type in. So even if the the fund is not recommended on the Scriptbox portfolio. You can type in the name of your fund and we'll give you a fact sheet, but which is a proprietary Scriptbox fact sheet. It tells you what we feel about the underlying risk, what we feel about the past performance. That will be a good tool for you to get your own feel of it. We won't confuse you with big jargon, but hopefully it'll serve your purpose. It is in our interest that our investors remain invested. It's what we set up the company to do. And I'm confident that the team is working very hard to make sure that we don't expose any of our customers to undue risk. Yes, given the nature of the industry, we are all subject to the vagaries of the markets. But believe me, if you follow the right asset allocation principles which are risk adjusted and you've got your goals clear, it'll be a good time to remain in the markets, both in equity and in debt. On that note, I'll just say thank you very much, MJ, for taking time out on a holiday. Your stories were simple and very homely. It made complex matters easy to understand. So thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who took the time out to dial in. Please feel free to send us any more questions you have. It's in our interest to answer them, and we really love to hear from our customers. And any other feedback you have about these webinars or this particular webinar, we'd love to hear from you at help@scriptbox.com, or you can use any of our social media handles to interact with us. Thank you once again. Believe in the power of compounding, believe in the power of the experts. We are on your side. It's in our interest to make sure that you succeed. So thank you once again, and thank you, MJ, for looking after our customers. And
thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.